Greetings, everyone. My name is Father Sebastian, impresario of the Endless Night Vampire Ball, Master Fangsmith of the Sabretooth Clan, and author of Black Veils and Strig of Eye. Today, I want to welcome you to my podcast episode number 8. And today, we're going to interview a good, decent friend of mine named Matt V. Christ, who also happens to be the production manager of the Endless Night Vampire Ball. He's been with the company for over 2 decades. And you might know him because he's also known as DJ Matt V. Christ. Hey, Matt,
Hello.
what's up?
How you doing?
Great. Out here in the desert of California, hanging out and thinking of you.
It looks like a nice dark desert.
Yes. Well, I blocked out a lot of the sunlight because, it's like the movie Near Dark here.
Ah.
So, have you been, man? It's been a while since we've seen each other.
Good. Yeah, God, I guess it's been 2 months since the last ball, right? A little over that.
So we just did the Valentine's ball, and we had some pretty cool activities going on. You, of course, kicked ass on the dance floor.
Thank you.
Ruled it as a priest of the vampires.
Dance my puppets. That's what I say.
Oh, so we came back with a bang after the pandemic, man.
Oh, absolutely. It was like I remember that the first big one back was the New Orleans event, which was Halloween weekend. We were October 30th, I believe it was. And we were all a little nervous to go back to an event at that level right after everything reopened. I think when we first got there, there was still a mask mandate. It lifted, I think, the very next day, like right before the event.
Mm-hmm. Actually, Salem was 2 weeks before.
Salem was 2 weeks before. That was our first big one back. You're right.
Yes.
But there was still a mask mandate in Salem, though. Everybody had to wear masks.
Yeah, and everybody had to get tested to get into the event.
Yeah,
and everybody took their mask off by like 11:30.
Well, it's like there's like they you have to walk in wearing a mask, but they don't have people watching and making sure you keep it on while you're buying drinks and whatnot.
Absolutely.
But yeah, in New Orleans though, the mask mandate lifted like right before the event. But we still had to make sure everybody had the vaccine. I think was the protocol for New Orleans at the time.
Vaccine or testing?
Vaccine or testing. I remember there were some staff members that did the rapid test on site, if I recall correctly. But we were nervous that it would mess with our numbers, and it didn't. It was still huge.
Yeah, it was good to be back. Remember the virtual vampire ball that we did in New Orleans? There was like 12 of us in the venue.
Yeah, it was an interesting experience. I mean, I like being at the House of Blues even when there's not that many people there. But I mean, we made it work. We had to bring some of our own equipment. I remember, I had to teach the venue staff how to stream using Zoom because they'd only done it other ways. I'm like, this is the program. This is how you send it into Zoom. This is everything you have to download. We did it all on site, and I showed them how to make it work. And it all went off without a hitch, which was definitely.
It was a magical night, man. It was like Victor doing the door from New York in his boxers. Oops, I didn't mean to say that. But
I love that we had a GIF of a go-go dancer, and they made it look like it was on the stage, even though it was just like a GIF silhouette that was part of the program.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I think that's OBS that we used. So
yes, open broadcasting.
We got to go. We haven't skipped a year since 2008 in New Orleans.
Well, not at all. I mean, I remember. We had to take a break from New Orleans because of what was it, Katrina. But then we went back in 2008.
Yep, 2007 actually. We were at the Conti Museum Wax Museum, and we had Voltaire performing, and it wasn't the same as the House of Blues. But we got to go home to the House of Blues.
I remember our first time back at the House of Blues in 2008 as well. There was an early party. Do you remember that? There was like a Michael Jackson cover band that started the night before we even got to do our thing.
And since then, we've expanded into the whole venue.
Yeah, like we started off as the after show for another show, and suddenly we've taken we are the entire show on multiple stages throughout the entire weekend. Like there's nothing else going on when we're there.
Absolutely. So, what is your favorite city to do Endless Night?
Well, I guess it depends. Do you mean venue or the be in the city in general?
Okay, each.
I would say my favorite venue is absolutely the House of Blues. The sound system is, out of everything we work with, it can't be beat. Everything is
Mhm.
just like their staff is so on point. Like there are some venues where I do a good amount of the work myself and there's not a lot of venue staff helping me, but at the House of Blues, like they have everything right there done. I just like we need this done, taken care of. And it's beautiful, it's wonderful. Um my favorite place that I've ever done an endless night, just because it's one of my favorite cities to visit though, is Dublin.
Cool.
Which
Yeah,
you still have to join us.
I'm looking forward to it, and I will for the next one. I promise you.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, it's there's just a great energy there and we've made some great friends there who like you remember I think it was the 2019 Endless Night right before COVID. A couple of my friends from Ireland came all the way to New Orleans to come check out the show because of they enjoyed the one we did over there.
You know, one of the things that I think is the coolest thing about Endless Night is that we are like a traveling band. Okay, we're like going to see Sisters of Mercy, where Peter Murphy actually shows up. Oh,
Yeah.
slam, dum dum dum. Um, and what I find interesting is that our crew shapes and shifts a little bit, but there's always Matt, there's always Sebastian, and there's most often Victor. And we have, we're like a traveling band, and we have like the core group, the extended group, the extended group, and the extended group, and then the audience. And I think that doing Endless Night in a new city is always the first year is always a special energy because it's the first time it's been there.
You
Like
remember
Salem.
sorry, when we were in Tampa and we took a brunch cruise the day after the event and we had 4 or 5 different people come up to us just to ask us if we were in a band.
I know. We're in the band called the Endless Night, my friends,
Yes.
my little friends. It's always great to go on adventures. So, what is your favorite memory of Endless Night?
Oh, geez. Um, God, that's really hard. It's really hard to just pick one. I'm just trying to narrow it down. Like, what's the
What pops
um,
in your head first?
um, I think when we had Crew Shadows in New Orleans, and when they went into Deception, and the way the crowd just erupted.
Yeah.
Because that's like one of those top 250 vampire songs. When they hear that song, it's just like, oh my god! And then Rogue, the singer, he went into the crowd and he actually do-si-doed with a random crowd member.
True Southern hospitality, right?
Yes.
It's something that we New Yorkers are a little bit got to work on a little bit.
Yeah.
So, one thing that I can't recall is your perspective of how you got involved in Endless Night. How did that happen?
Well, um, I've known you since 2005. I started working with you in 2006. But I remember the first time I met you, there was an Endless Night event at a venue in New York City that no longer exists. It was called Crash Mansion.
Oh my God.
Remember Crash Mansion? Yeah.
Yeah. Holy
I
crap.
was there because I was working for a local band book company that booked bands at various clubs, and we used to do a weekly event at Crash Mansion. So the one of the managers said like, "Hey, we have this gothic vampire event happening this weekend. Just come in. We'll put you on the list since you work with us all the time." So I was like, "Sure, yeah, I'll check it out." And I was at that point I'd never met you. We'd never spoken. I wasn't really familiar with your work even at that point. But I went to
Was
the
that near Delancey and Bowery?
yes, it was on Bowery.
Okay.
Um, and I remember I was just sitting at the bar having a drink, and you just randomly said to me like, "Hey, are you having a good time?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." And I said, "Oh yeah, I'm actually I do events here. I'm one of the people who works here." And you're like, "Oh wow, great to meet you." And then it was shortly after that that I started doing Bloody Mondays, and that was when you actually came up to me one day and said, we need an assistant stage manager over at the bank for our next event. Would you be interested in helping us out?" And I said, "Sure." And that was the first time I ever worked with you. But after that, I was no longer the assistant stage manager. I was the main stage manager ever since.
It's kind of been like one of those unexpected situations that just works out fine.
Yeah, this is again 2005, 2006, and we're still doing it.
We're still kicking it. So, have you heard? So you never heard of Endless Night before that?
Before the 2005 event, no, I was unfamiliar.
Okay. Now, right now, obviously, it's a little hard to do events in Europe. What city in Europe would you see Endless Night best fitting?
I mean, I would love it if we could somehow be one of the after parties for Treffen in
Yeah,
Leipzig. That would be amazing to me. I was going to go this year, but I mean, like you said, it's really hard to do anything in Europe, so I'm not even going this year. I'm not even going to be in attendance. But that would be amazing if we could somehow be part of that, just because that's such a huge crowd, a huge energy, and there's so many more people that we could work with, and just to make it an amazing and different experience than what we already do. I think it'll be awesome and automatically worth doing.
Well, Matt, I'm going to put you in charge of that mission for 2023.
Okay, that's going to be quite an interesting mission.
Yep. So you're the point person for that. I dub you the deputy of Wave Gothic Treffen.
Okay.
If you heard it here first. I mean, of course, I'll be there to help out and network and use my magical networking magic to do it.
Well, there's lots of conversations that need to happen before we can even start that.
I know. So, Endless Night started as the New York Vampire Ball at the Bank in winter of 2000. Not 2000. That's way too late. 1996. It was inspired by the Anne Rice Vampire Ball in New Orleans when it was run by Geffen Pictures that year in 1995. And I went there and I came back. And the next, about July of 1996, I was able to throw a 2,800 person vampire ball at Limelight. We had the whole club. Where were you in your life at that time?
At 1996?
Yeah.
I was in high school in central New Jersey where I grew up. I was I was like maybe my freshman year of high school. I'd never been to a club in 1996.
Do you know I had a fight with Danzig about you?
I don't believe you.
Well, here's the story, my friend. About 3 years ago, before the pandemic, Danzig was working on a Wild West movie, Vampire Wild West movie, and their Fang Smith got sick. So they called me up to come in to help out. And I ended up in the trailer with Danzig, with him trying to get me to make fangs that were cut, the tips were cut off, so they looked like they were biting into someone's neck.
Okay.
And he goes, "Where are you from? You have a weird accent." And I'm like, "I'm from Jersey." And he's like, "Where in Jersey?" And I'm like, "Central Jersey." He's like, "There's no such thing as Central Jersey." And I'm like, "My production manager has a 609 area code. They cut off half the 609 area code and the 201 area code and cut off half of that, merged together into 908. Therefore, the birth of Central Jersey. Have you been there since then?" He's like, "That doesn't count. There's no such thing as Central Jersey." I'm like, "Well, my stage manager for my events begs to differ." And he was like, "Well, tell your stage manager to move back to Jersey, South Jersey, because there's no Central Jersey." And I'm like, "All right, Glenn."
Well, I always called it Central Jersey. One weird thing is like I hear there's like a big debate between like pork roll and Taylor ham. But like I'd never heard that. Like I honestly, it's not something I grew up with. When they're like, "Oh, well, some people in Jersey call it pork roll, some people call it Taylor ham." I'm like, I'm not familiar with either term. I'm sorry, I've never had it even.
I think New Jersey is pretty cool. You got Atlantic City, you got the Garden State Art Center, the PNC Art Center. You've got Red Bank, where Jane Silent Bob are from. You got the Jersey Devil, weird Jersey. I wasn't born in New Jersey, so I don't fully count as a Jersey boy. But I spent my formative years from 1 until 14 in New Jersey.
I mean, I technically still live in New Jersey, but I'm actually right on the border. Like, you can see the entire Manhattan skyline from my porch.
Yep, I love seeing that. You know where I just went to Edinburgh with my wife for my honeymoon.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, there's no more of a Gotham city than that.
Edinburgh, really.
Edinburgh is one of the most beautiful cities I've ever seen. The architecture is all dark marble, okay, or dark stone, and it's really gorgeous. So one of the things that I encourage, like, I didn't expect it. Like, I didn't believe that a city could look like a Harry Potter's nightmare experience. But I took the Potter Trail tour, and I got to go everywhere around where Harry Potter was written, and a lot of the inspiration of the tour. And I saw Tom Riddle's grave.
Oh, nice! Wow, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll tell you what.
But
I'll go to Scotland after you go to Ireland.
Why don't we go to Scotland and Ireland at the same time?
All right, sounds like a plan. You guys heard it here first.
Because we got to do a party in Edinburgh. Torture Garden, our friends from Torture Garden do a party in Edinburgh.
Oh, I would love it. I would love to actually do something like that. It'd be amazing.
But my wife and I found the coolest goth venue that we probably ever encountered so far.
Wow.
It's called the Banshee Labyrinth.
I love the name, God.
Yes. And it's on a side street. But I'll tell you, there's like 6 bars, a movie theater, a gig room for bands, and it's got a dungeon. It's incredible. It's one of the coolest places I've ever seen.
The space we did in Dublin was called the Voodoo Lounge, which is also a really nice space.
Oh, are you going to do it again there? Because you got the franchise for Dublin.
Yeah, we're discussing doing something a little differently for Dublin next time. We actually think, again, with everything going on in Europe right now, we don't think we're going to do it this summer because a lot of our people will be coming from Central Europe, and I know it might not be as easy to like properly promote. So we're actually talking about doing a live stream from a different venue.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's just, I mean, financially and logistically, it just makes more sense to do a live stream. This year, we do want to do an in-person event again, and we're actually talking with a couple different venues about changing it up. But me and 2 other promoters that we do events with, Sean and Mandana, they are coming with me this summer, and we're actually going to meet with a couple venues and see what makes the most sense.
Good. Well, I look forward to hearing what the fruit of your results, the fruit of your good work.
So do I.
So a couple of years ago, I tasked you and DJ Eric Angel, to a mission to come up with 250 vampire songs from movies and TV shows and stuff like that, and vampire genre. Can you tell us a little bit about that project?
I mean, there are certain staples that, especially in vampire-themed events, that we always lean on. I mean, the obvious ones are like Bloodletting and Cry Little Sister. But like, we delved out into other songs, even other genres that we don't normally, not really dancey, so we don't play them at events. But anything that talks about vampires or blood or immortality, it's also just an overall enjoyable song. Like, kind of became part of that list. And I mean, with music being what it is, obviously, we could keep going. There could be thousands if we just kept paying attention to everything new coming out that works for that as well.
Absolutely. What do you think of the Queen of the Dam soundtrack?
The best part of that movie.
Snap, as we say in gay culture, gay vampire culture, the snap. So, what is your most memorable experience in New Orleans?
Well, I remember the first time I was in New Orleans. I mean, I haven't done this in a long time, but aside from DJing, as you mentioned, I had some audio background. I used to write and record my own music. I wrote a song inspired from my first time in New Orleans and doing the vampire event. And a year later, Eric Angel actually played it during the event and had a dance floor going to a song I wrote. To me, that was a very memorable moment.
Of course, an artist having his art exercised is absolutely one of the most pleasurable things. So, what I'm doing right now is I have a series of questions that I'm asking all the Endless Night staff and stuff like that. We went over where you're from, how you get involved in Endless Night, what you do at Endless Night. How about your style? When you see a theme, what goes through your head?
I love putting an outfit together. I mean, the Samhain theme, I was all about that. I mean, if you recall, I went as a druid. I had a big druid robe that was covered in Celtic runes. I even did the Celtic face paint as well as part of it. And I brought a giant shillelagh style staff. It was a blackthorn shillelagh staff, which I actually left there. I don't have it anymore. Um, but I think the year before that was Black Magic, right? The 2019.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
went as a black mage, which is like the face blacked out. And I even I remember I bought those push lights, and I attached them to the mask so it looked like I had glowing white eyes.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, so I mean, I like having a theme that I can put together a creative outfit with, and that's something that I've been able to do a lot with at Endless Night.
So while the pandemic was happening and we were doing the virtual events, do you think that contributed to our brand Endless Night surviving and coming through?
I mean, I think that it got us some attention from people that might not have known about us, you know, or like they haven't had the experience. Some people aren't able to travel to things, but they've always wanted to come to an Endless Night. So this was the closest proximity that they were able to have, and I'm quite sure that they were happy to have it and have that kind of exposure. And hopefully, it will encourage them to travel and come to something in person now.
Do you think that virtual events are over, or do you think that we should continue doing them?
I don't think they're over. I don't think that they're going to be around to the same extent that they were. I don't think there's longevity enough to now that there's so much you can do in person now. But I mean, I think that they're always going to be around.
Hmm. I just like sitting in my boxers with my poet shirt on top and just sitting there relaxing and switching rooms while I
Yeah.
was sitting there in
I mean, as a
my
DJ,
comfy
you know,
chair.
there's nothing more gratifying than feeding off the energy of a live crowd and getting the floor going. And, like, you know, it's reciprocal. They feed off of what you're doing and you feed off of what they're doing. Like, doorbell just rang. I apologize for that. I'm not going to answer, though.
Okay. So, what is your musically? What is it like to be a DJ on the? You talked about feeding and making community and exchanging energy with people on the dance floor.
Hmm.
Um, what what is your favorite dance floor? Like we have the Salem dance floor in the ballroom. We have the New Orleans dance floor on the House of Blues main stage. We have the big dance floor at the Globe in LA.
I mean, dance floor wise, I mean, I'm flashbacking to last time we were in Tampa. I mean, the Castle in Ybor in Tampa, and that's a solid dance floor. I mean, that place is built more for DJs than for live stuff. So that's a good dance floor to have going.
Absolutely. Okay, good point. So we're coming up on the two events are coming up. We've got Friday the 13th in outside of Salem at Hammond Castle. And you got to go see it with Ben and Lex, and I got to go see it with Patty and Patty Kadrick and Patty and Kadrick and I went. And what are you planning for that event?
Well, you know, I'm still thinking about it, to be honest. I'm like, I wanna do something that has a medieval feel while we're in a castle. You know, like just I mean, outfit wise, I want to see what I have and what I can put together. Music wise, I mean, it still has to be dancey, but it has to have the proper atmosphere because that's really what I want to play to if we're in a castle.
Okay. And what do you think of this place? Does it remind you of Conclave Castle, Finstergrund?
No, I mean, well, in the sense that it's also a castle, but the layout's completely different. They both have beautiful views though, like where we do the conclave event, it's in the Austrian Alps, you know, it's beautiful
Mhm.
with the sea, like, you know, the mountains around you and everything. This place is right on the ocean, so it's really nice to see the water right outside, like, you know, a big view across the ocean. Is you know is really nice as well. But the grounds are really nice. I mean, Finstergroom has more outdoor grounds. I think the ballroom at this place is a little bigger than what we had at Finstergroom, though.
Absolutely. You know, one thing that I miss about Conclave is Conclave.
I miss being in those Alps. God.
The air was so good, and the water was great, and the beer
Oh
was
yeah.
wonderful. So
Yeah, I like to do more things in Europe again. I mean, I like to have that atmosphere. There's plenty of things that we can work towards doing again.
yeah, I remember when we'd fly over like 3 or 4 times a year. You go to Ireland, I go to France. We go to Austria. We've got the Treffen, but
Yeah.
let's see what goes on with Wave Gothic Treffen in the next year, because I think that right now is the time to kind of get on board. They're not sure what's going on this year exactly,
Well, last I
because
heard, they're still doing it, right?
yeah, they are, but they're switching it up.
Yeah, they don't have all the same venues because I think some of the venues are housing refugees, aren't they?
Yes, well, we'll figure it out. Hopefully, the war is over by then,
God, I
and
hope so.
we'll be able to go forward and go back to Treffen and take the tram 13 again, the black tram. Um, and you know what I find funny is when I first got to Germany and I saw the Crew Shadow CD in a supermarket, and I'm like, and I looked down and it said black music, and I'm like, what? And what it is the black scene over there is metalheads, goths, and the fetish scene, and industrial people. And
Um, I remember when I first landed in Leipzig. Um, I just found it oddly ironic that I'm at the biggest Gothic festival in the world, and I'm getting in my cab to go to the hotel, and they're listening to "Walking on Sunshine."
you know what's great about Wave Gothic Treffen? The train station. When you're going to Treffen, more and more people in black show up in your life on the trains and stuff like that. I remember taking the train from Paris. There would be like 20 goth kids on the train, and then we took the train to Cologne, and then we changed trains and then go to Frankfurt, and then from Frankfurt, eventually this a sea of black goth people would be black clothes and parasols and goggles and new rocks and boots would come from there, and it was just really cool. And then when you finally get to the train station in Treffen, which by the way is one of the largest train stations in the world, in Leipzig, you get off the train and you walk through you walk there, and it's just like in this giant mall, because it's like a mall and a train station, like a sea of black.
It was like
And
that at the airport at Frankfurt is like that too. It felt like a shopping mall with all the big stores they had in it.
yeah,
You remember? I think last time I was there was 2018, and we got stranded in Frankfurt for an extra night.
that was that long ago.
That was 2018. Yeah.
Oh wow. Whew.
Yeah, I think there was like a strike in France or something at the Paris airport, and all
Yeah,
flights were delayed. And like the connecting flight from Leipzig that connected in Frankfurt was delayed to the point where we couldn't make the connection home, so we got stuck there.
but we got stuck in a really nice hotel.
It was a beautiful hotel. I remember pulling up to that in a cab and being like, "Is this freaking Wayne Manor?" Um, it was huge. They had an outdoor chandelier. They had this giant patio, which is on a lake, and it was like, "This is freaking elegance."
I know, and it was funny because there was so much chaos in trying to get places to stay. The Goth Ren kids were really funny because they got a hotel right across the street from the airport. But
Yeah, but they waited in line for 2 hours for that.
yeah, that's true. So what do you think? Okay, so we're running out of time. Okay, but I want to say thank you for coming, and I have two more questions. For those who have not been to Endless Night and they hear all these weird urban legends and stories and stuff like that, what would you tell them?
Some of them are true, some of them aren't. The good ones are true. I mean, the crowd, the following, the music, the performances, all positive things. And I will tell you, I had a friend that came to Endless Night several years ago, and this was their first time. And she actually said to me, she's like, I thought I'd been to parties before, but I was wrong. That was a party.
Oh, that's a great line. And what do you see the future of Endless Night? Where do you see it going?
Um, it's just, I mean, we're always ever expanding. I think that's what it's about. Like, like you said, we're like a traveling band. We get to go to new places, to meet new people, and do new things. I mean, I see us making new connections, working with new venues, and just growing the brand.
And what would you say was the biggest endless night you've been to?
Um, I mean, it was definitely a New Orleans one. I can't think which year. So many of them go together in my head. I'm like, which year was that? Which theme was that? The Gods and Monsters was one of the biggest ones we ever had, I think. Remember that
Absolutely.
theme? Yeah.
That was
I
huge.
think that might be it. I remember being upstairs and not being able to move.
Well, Matt V. Christ, thank you for joining us today here at the
Thank
Father
you.
Sebastian Experience. And it's good to have people see behind the scenes on who's running Endless Night, not just looking at you on stage. And I hope you make some friends from doing this interview, because everybody that goes to Endless Night's gonna get a copy.
Oh, cool. Well, I hope to meet them all in person.
Cool. Don't forget, October 30th in New Orleans is Babylon. October 29th is the Vampire Ball. And we have a special announcement coming in a couple episodes about the cover of Vampire Magazine issue 13, which will be out on the bookshelves in September. Guys, rock and roll. I want you guys to have a great time. Check out us at endlessnight.com for all updated events. And thank you to our sponsors, Endless Night, Vamp Fangs, and Sabretooth.com. Rock and roll, guys. Thank you for watching. The best way to support us on this vampire adventure is through the crowdsource funding website, Patreon. Please support our sponsors, Endless Night Vampire Ball, Sabretooth 3D Fangs, and Vampire Magazine. Thank you. Rock and roll.